Have you ever wondered why some people get seriously ill and others facing the same circumstances don't? Or why a diagnosis that seems to come out of nowhere actually makes perfect sense when you look deeper? These are questions I get asked constantly, and they came up again recently in the webinar, which is exactly why I wanted to dedicate an entire video to this topic, because the answers aren't obvious. Not unless you've been trained to look beyond the surface, not unless you work holistically. In my daily practice, I see what's possible. I see people heal from things that were labeled incurable. And I want to share what I've learned because this knowledge has the power to change everything. Let's start with the most important reframe of all. Illness is a fire alarm. That's the most important thing I want you to take away from this video. Your illness is not attacking you. It's not a punishment. It's a signal, a loud, urgent message from your body, your energy field, and your soul telling you there is a deeper problem that needs your attention. When a fire alarm goes off in a building, you don't rip out the batteries and go back to sleep. You find the fire. The same logic applies here. If we only treat the symptom, the alarm, without ever asking why it went off, we're missing the point entirely. And that's exactly what conventional medicine so often does. It manages symptoms brilliantly, but it rarely asks, what is the root? That root can exist on multiple levels. And we're going to go through all of them today. The first and most tangible level is the physical body itself. One of the most underestimated drivers of disease is imbalance in the body's inner ecosystem, specifically the microbiome. Your gut is home to trillions of microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, and other microbes that play a critical role in digestion, immune function, hormone production, and even mental health. When this ecosystem is thrown off balance by a diet high in processed foods and sugar, by antibiotics, by environmental toxins, by mold exposure, or by chronic stress, the body becomes breeding ground for dysfunction. Pathogenic fungi like Candida can overgrow. The gut lining can become inflamed or permeable, what's often called leaky gut. And from there, the ripple effects can be enormous. This is why I always look at the physical foundation first. What is the person eating? What's their diet? What toxins are they carrying? Does the body need a detox? Would intermittent fasting or more structured cleanse help reset the terrain? Because here's the thing, when you clean up the physical environment of the body, you also create space for emotional and energetic healing. The two are deeply connected. The energetic level, what you can't see, is shaping what you can. This is where things get fascinating and where conventional medicine has very little to say. The physical body doesn't exist in isolation. It is built upon an energy field. And I know that might sound abstract, but this is increasingly supported by science. The biofield, the electromagnetic and subtle energy field that surrounds and permeates the body, is not mystical. It is measurable. And it is the blueprint from which the physical body organizes itself. Every organ, every system, every cell is represented in the energy field before it manifests in physical tissue. Which means when something is disturbed in the energy field, it eventually shows up in the physical body. Think of the energy field as the software and the physical body as the hardware. If the code is corrupted, the hardware will malfunction, no matter how many times you reboot the machine. What can disturb the energy field? Many things. Energetic imprints from this lifetime, unresolved patterns carried across past lives, ancestral wound passed down through family lines, what researchers are now calling epigenetic or transgenerational trauma. And of course the chakra system, which governs the flow of energy to specific organs and glands. When a chakra is blocked or distorted, the organs and glands connected to it become deprived of vital energy. Over time, they weaken. Eventually, they break down. This is not a metaphor. This is mechanics. The emotional and soul level, where disease is born. Now we come to the level that in my experience underlies the majority of chronic illnesses. The emotional and soul body. Your emotions are not just feelings. They are biochemical events, energetic imprints, and when unprocessed, they become stored in specific organs. The liver holds anger, chronic resentment, suppressed rage, years of biting your tongue. The liver carries all of it. The lungs hold grief, loss, heartbreak, the inability to let go. It lives in the lungs. The kidneys hold fear, deep existential fear, fear of survival, of abandonment, of not being enough, resides in the kidneys. The heart, quite literally, can break. Takotsubo syndrome, stress cardiomyopathy, is a medically recognized condition where acute emotional shock causes the heart muscle to balloon and weaken. The broken heart is not just a metaphor. When emotions are never expressed, never processed, never allowed to move through the body, they get stored. And stored emotional energy over years and decades creates the conditions for disease. This is especially significant when we talk about tumors. The deeper meaning behind specific diseases. Breast cancer and self-love. In women, breast cancer is one of the most common diagnoses, and in my work I see a recurring theme. The breast represents nourishment, self-nourishment, or better, lack of self-nourishment. The ability to care for oneself is an existential need for humans. Women who develop breast tumors have often spent years, sometimes their entire life, putting everyone else first. Partner, children, parents, colleagues. They pour endlessly outward while their own cup runs dry. They silence their own needs. They don't ask for help. They don't rest. They don't receive. If this resonates with you, I want you to generally ask yourself, where in your life have you consistently put yourself last? Where have your own needs been treated as optional? This isn't about blame. This is about awareness, and awareness is where healing begins. You incarnated for yourself, not for your family, not for your partner, not for your career, for you. And here's the paradox. When you take care of yourself first, when you generally fill your own cup, everyone around you benefits. You show up more fully. You give them from overflow, not from depletion. Your family, your children, your relationships, they all thrive when you thrive. Prostate cancer and power. In men, prostate issues, including cancer, often carry the theme of power, specifically the fear of losing it. Men are wired differently from women in how they navigate identity and belonging. Where women tend to build identity through deep relational bonds, intimacy, community, mutual support, men have historically defined themselves through hierarchy, status, and competition. The pack, the ranking, who's on top, who leads, who provides. This means that a perceived loss of status, losing a job, being passed over for promotion, feeling emasculated or irrelevant, existential, can hit a man at the existential level. It's not just an inconvenience. It can feel like the ground has been pulled out from under him. Like he no longer has a right to exist in the way he always understood himself to exist. That wound, the fear of powerlessness, of being unseated, of failing, often finds its way into the prostate. Depression, anxiety, and the gut-brain connection. Depression is not a character flaw. It's not weakness. And I've come to see it as something very specific, the soul going into deep rest. Depressed. The word itself tells us something. Depressed. Deep rest. The soul has become so exhausted from playing a role that doesn't fit, a career chosen by someone else, a life built around others, expectations, a version of the self that has nothing to do with who the person actually is, that it simply stops. It withdraws, it goes quiet, and the body follows. What I always do first with someone experiencing depression is look at the gut. The gut-brain connection is one of the most exciting areas of modern research. Roughly 90 to 95% of the body's serotonin, often called the happiness hormone, is produced in the gut, not the brain. When the microbiome is disrupted, serotonin production drops. Mood crashes, the nervous system dysregulates, anxiety and depression follow. So the first intervention is often physical. Reset the gut, clean up the diet, address any infections or imbalances in the microbiome. But that alone isn't enough. We also need to ask, where did this person take a wrong turn? Where did they abandon their authentic self in favor of what was expected, what was safe, what was kept the peace? Because that's where the real work begins. The same is true for panic attacks and anxiety. The question isn't just how do we manage the symptoms? The question is, what is the root of this fear? What does this person believe about themselves, about life, about safety, and where did that belief come from? Resolve the root, then anxiety dissolves. The topic, autoimmune disease and the inner conflict. Autoimmune conditions are among the most complex I work with, and they are in a very specific way the most honest. In autoimmune disease, the body attacks itself, the immune system, which exists to protect the body from threats. It turns on the very tissues it's meant to defend. From a holistic perspective, this is a mirror of an inner conflict that a person can't yet face. On the surface, someone with an autoimmune condition wants to get better. Of course they do. Who wouldn't? But at a deeper, unconscious level, there is often a part of the person, a frightened inner child, a deeply ingrained belief system that is holding the illness in place, because the illness serves a function. When I'm sick, I don't have to do the thing I'm most afraid of. I can't go to that event. I can't take that risk. I can't be seen. I can't fail. The illness becomes protection. And I've seen it with my own mother. This is not a moral failing. This is a deeply human coping mechanism. But until we go inside and find out what the person is so afraid of and help that part of them feel safe enough to release, the immune system will keep fighting itself. The good news? I have seen this reversed. Hashimoto's, neuropathy, conditions that seem permanent, people become virtually symptom-free when the underlying conflict was finally resolved. It's not common knowledge, but it's possible. Transgenerational trauma, what we inherit. One of the most profound and often overlooked sources of illness is what we inherit, not just genetically, but emotionally, energetically, and soulically. Modern epigenetics confirms what healers have known for centuries. Trauma changes gene expression, and those changes can be passed down through generations. Studies on Holocaust survivors and their descendants, on war refugees and their children, have shown measurable differences in stress hormones and fear responses, even in people who never personally experienced the original trauma. But it goes deeper than biology. When you were conceived, your mother was already carrying the emotional imprints of her mother and her mother before her. Patterns of fear, of shame, of abandonment, of loss. Beliefs about survival, about love, about worthiness. These are woven into the field before you take your first breath. I've worked with people carrying trauma from the embryonic stage, from the moment of conception itself. And yes, in some cases from previous lifetimes. This isn't about blame or judgment. Your parents did the best they could with the consciousness they had that time. But until these inherited patterns are identified and resolved, they quietly run the show. They shape the relationships you attract, the beliefs you hold about yourself, the illnesses you develop. Healing the lineage heals the individual. When illness is a soul choice. I want to be honest with you about something that is uncomfortable to say but important to acknowledge. Not every illness is meant to be healed. There are conditions like ALS, like certain progressive neurological diseases where, despite every intervention, the disease continues its course. And that also occurs, of course, with cancer. And in those cases, I have come to understand something that is difficult from a human perspective. The soul may have chosen this experience, not as a punishment, not as a failure, but as part of a larger arc we can't fully see and understand. The soul is on a journey that spans for more than a single lifetime, and some experiences, even deeply painful ones, are part of that journey's design. What this means for loved ones is perhaps the hardest teaching of all. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let go. When someone is near the end of their life and cannot seem to cross over, it is often the grief of those around them holding them here. We say without meaning to, please don't leave me, or I can't live without you, I can't function without you. And the soul, out of love, stays and suffers. What I have found time and time again is that when a loved one says, I love you, I will miss you more than I can say, but you have my blessing to go, I will be okay, something releases. Often within days, sometimes hours. I know this firsthand. My own father in the final stages of COPD was struggling. He was exhausted, he couldn't breathe, life had become suffering. I sat with him and I told him, you don't need to stay for me or for the children, you don't need to hold on. You can go whenever you're ready. He passed peacefully in his sleep 2 days later. Letting go is one of the most profound acts of love. How I work the holistic approach. So how do we actually address all of this? In my practice, healing happens across every level simultaneously because that's where the roots are. The physical body. We look at nutrition, supplements, detoxification, and sometimes structured fasting. Fasting is powerful not only as a physical reset but as an emotional one. When the body enters a fasted state, emotional patterns and even traumas become more accessible and easier to release. The energy field. This is hands-on structural work. Chakras must be rebuilt, not just cleared or balanced with intention, but physically reconstructed on all 7 levels. Organs are treated in the energy field, meridians are restored, energetic objects are removed, and this is not abstract, it's a precise methodical work. Then the soul. Soul retrieval is often a central part of the deep healing. Fragments of the self get lost at pivotal moments, moments of trauma, of shock, of overwhelming pain. PTSD can also be resolved in that way. These fragments need to be found and reintegrated before the person can feel whole again. The mind and beliefs. Limiting beliefs. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of love. I always fail. I have to earn my place. These are not just thoughts. They are energetic programs running in the background, shaping every experience. We identify them, trace them to their origin, and dissolve them. The lineage. Transgenerational patterns are addressed directly. Healing the family line is not a metaphor. It's a real and tangible process. Throughout all of this, one principle is non-negotiable. The person is responsible for their own healing. I clear the path, I remove the obstacles, but no one can walk the path for you. And reclaiming that responsibility, that agency is itself a crucial part of getting well. Everything begins beneath the visible. That is the principle that guides everything I do. The root of every illness, physical, psychological, spiritual, lives in a layer that most people never examine. But when you go there, when you're willing to look at what's really underneath, extraordinary things become possible. Tumors have dissolved, autoimmune conditions have gone into remission, decades of depression have lifting. Anxiety released, relationships have transformed. None of this is magic. It's simply what happens when you stop treating the alarm and start dealing with the fire. If this resonated with you, if you recognize yourself in any of what I shared today, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below. ask your question, share your experience. See you soon.